Grade 4 is looking at N.S.T, matter and material, and we're looking at the keywords that go with this section. Right, firstly, we've got matter, particle, and material. Now, these are linked because matter is pretty much what everything around us is made of. So every single little thing is made of matter. And then particle is a very, very small part of matter. And then materials is all made up of small particles. So everything is made of matter. A particle is a tiny bit of matter, and material is a whole bunch of little particles put together. So those are linked like that. So you can remember the three of them like that. Matter is absolutely everything. Particle, tiny bit of matter, and material is a couple of particles. Right, then we've got evaporation and condensation, and I've put these two together because they're linked. Evaporation is changing from a liquid to a gas state by adding heat to the liquid. So if you think about it, if we put water on the stove, we add heat, and that water changes into a gas state. Okay, it's gone from a liquid, water, to a gas state, water vapor up in the air. So that's evaporation. It's when the liquid changes to a gas and there's always heat involved. That's why my evaporation is in red. Condensation is almost the opposite. Now you've got to add cooling, or you've got to cool things down. That's why my condensation is in blue. So condensation, you've got to cool things down. And now we're going from a gas to a liquid through cooling. So when we go through water vapor, so now in the air, there's automatically water vapor. That's what our air is made of. And when it gets cold, that water vapor turns back into liquid. So if you take a glass out of the fridge, let's say you've put an empty glass in the fridge, you take it out, the water vapor in the air around the glass gets cold because the glass itself is cold. And then you'll find there little dewdrops, little water droplets on the outside of the glass or on the glass itself, even if the glass was empty. That's the water vapor in the air cooling down and changing back into a liquid. So evaporation, liquid to gas with heat. Condensation, gas to liquid with cooling. These are reversible. You can change from a liquid to a gas and back to a liquid again. Right, then we are looking at the next two, which is melting and freezing. These two are a little bit easier because you know what it means to melt something. It's when a solid changes to a liquid through heating. So we think of an ice block, it's solid, and it changes to a liquid when we warm it up. Again, the melting is to do with heat. It warms up and the solid changes into a liquid. Then if we think of freezing, well, obviously it gets colder. We know that freezing has something to do with being cold. That's why my word is in blue. And now we're looking at going from a liquid to a solid. So we put liquid water in the freezer and it comes out as a solid block, solid ice block. It's cooled down. And then another word for that is it's solidified. Okay, so to solidify is when a liquid becomes a solid, when it changes into a solid. So freezing is the actual process that it goes through, and we say that water has solidified to become ice. These are reversible. I can take a glass of water, put it in the freezer, freeze it, it solidifies into ice, but I can also take that glass of ice out of the freezer. It will melt because it'll get warmer and become liquid again. So reversible is when something can go back to the way it was. Evaporation, condensation, liquid can go to gas, gas can go to liquid, it's reversible. And melting and freezing, it's reversible. Right, last two, water vapor and cycle. And I've mentioned water vapor already. It's water in a gas state. We sometimes call it steam, but that's actually not the correct word. Water vapor you cannot see, and steam you actually can. It's little water droplets again. But water vapor is water in its gas state. Okay, as a gas, remember, it's not seen, it's all around us all the time. That's called water vapor. And cycle is a process that keeps on repeating itself. So if we think of the water cycle, it's a process. It goes around and around. Process is something that happens. It's not just a tiny event. It's a process. It goes from one thing to the other, to the other, to the other. Okay, so if we think of a life cycle of a butterfly, it's a process. It keeps going around and around and around. The little caterpillar comes out, it becomes a cocoon, it becomes a butterfly, lays eggs, and then you've got more caterpillars, and so on and so on. So it never sort of runs out. Okay, those are your matter and material keywords. Your teacher could ask you for the definition. Remember, definition is to explain something. Remember, when you're giving a definition, don't use the word in the definition. Okay, so you can't say matter, everything is made of matter. Okay, you've got to say everything around us is made up of that. It's a bit of a bad example. I'm trying to think of one here. Freezing. You can't say it's when water freezes to be an ice block. Okay, you can't say that because you've used the word freezing. You've got to explain what freezing is without using the word. It's a bit like playing for 30 seconds. So you might say freezing is when liquid water changes into solid because it's cooled down. Okay, remember to give lots of detail when your teacher asks for explanations. Okay, think of all the little points that you can mention. So she could ask for definitions. She could give you the explanation of it and say, what do we call it when a liquid cools down and becomes a solid? Okay, and you've got to say either solidifies or you say it's freezing. If she talks about the process, then it would be freezing or melting. Be careful because there are a lot that are very similar. Okay, evaporation, condensation, freezing and melting, sort of similar. You just need to know, is it a liquid to a gas or is it a liquid to a solid? Okay, so just get that straight in your head. Otherwise, that's pretty much it. She would really only ask its keywords, so it would only really be definitions. She may give you a picture, and she might say, what process happens in this picture? And you'd be able to have to identify it. Okay, good luck.